Welcome to Running in the 70s, where we interview, meet, and get to know athletes of all kind who were running in the 70s. I'm your host, Matthew Kleinowski. Today on the podcast, we're out on the west coast of the USA with an amazing guy who's had an amazing life and amazing career. There's so many highlights of this. Let's just say couple-time national champion, steeplechase, winner, Beta Breakers, 7th in the World Cross Country Championships, 3 times on the World Cross Country team, probably a couple dozen times running in different countries around the world for the USA, and maybe well known. I don't think he thinks it's his greatest race of all time, but second place at Boston. All kind of stuff and an amazing life all around that running. So welcome today on the podcast, Gary Tuttle. Hi, Gary.
Thank you. Hi. Good to be here.
All right. I'm a little bit familiar with your story, and some of us in the running were early prodigies and just came to it. Others were baseball, football, basketball hopefuls that eventually gave all that up and became runners. How did you get into competitive running?
By accident. My dad was a basketball coach in high school, very successful. I grew up with a basketball in my hand. I thought I was going to be a basketball player. I thought I was going to be a baseball player. The way I got started was my dad, again, was sitting in the stands. I was playing JV baseball for Buena. He coached at Ventura. And I got a line drive single to right field against the varsity. I hit the ball really hard to right field, a one hopper to the right fielder. I'm chugging to first base fast as I can go. The ball beats me to the bag. So it was a 9-3 put out. My dad was sitting next to the cross country coach, Jim Hunt, at the time. And Jim Hunt said to my dad, he said, that kid's not going to be successful at basketball or baseball, but I'll bet you he can run a long ways. Have him come out for cross country next year. I'm like, cross country? I don't have time to run to New York. That's the old joke, but it's true. So I went out for cross country and was fortunate. Jim Hunt was, quite frankly, the best coach, in my opinion, in the nation. We had the second best high school team in the nation, set the standard for the 4-mile relay. So anyway, that's how it got started. I couldn't run very fast, so I went out for track.
How competitive were you growing up in a sports family with a dad who's a coach? How competitive were you by the time you joined cross country?
I was very competitive and I was a very bad sport. I hated to lose, and I still do, but I'm more mature now. When I was a 13, 14, 15-year-old, I had a bad reputation of just being a bad sport. And I got over that, I think. So there was a lot of pressure. My dad was a Hall of Fame coach, and Jim's named after him and all that. And I was a pretty good basketball player. I played varsity basketball, starting guard, but my height and my speed. So I played. I didn't want to play for my dad. He was coaching at Ventura. So I went to the other high school in town. Not that I didn't like my dad, but I figured I want to play for somebody besides my dad. That's how it got started. And then I went to cross country. And I didn't go out for track till my senior year in high school because I thought I was a baseball player still. In my junior year, I hit 112, I think. And it was like 1 for 19. And I thought, I'm probably not going to be a baseball player. And then CIF in California for the first year ever put the 2-mile into the track. Runners, all teams had to have a 2-mile. So I thought, okay, I'm not a miler, but maybe there's room for me in the 2-mile.
That's interesting, the steps we take. What made Coach Hunt so great, and what were your workouts like?
I had him for 4 years at Buena's cross country, and then I actually went on to Humboldt when I graduated, and Hunt said, oh man, you're so lucky to go to Humboldt. We love that area. After my freshman year, the track coach retired up there. I got on the phone, called Hunt, said this job is open. Nobody knows it yet. So Hunt got the job up there. To try to answer your questions, Hunt, first of all, he was a great friend, and he was a father figure to all of us, and we respected him, but he was a friend as well. I think his greatest strength was he taught all the runners that ran for him to coach themselves eventually. Some coaches are really good when the kids are there, but they're lost when they leave. And Hunt prepared us for a life after college of running. And I think that's because Bill Scobie, Chuck Smead, Daniel Grimes, Mark Conover, runners that went on after college to have tremendous success. We were at Humboldt State, which is the greatest place in the world to run day to day. So we had the terrain. We had the weather, which was a bit harsh, which made us a bit tougher. And we had the hills there and the beaches. And the hunt used all of those facilities and all those beautiful spots as training venues. We'd be at Big Creek one day running mile repeats. We'd be running the 18-mile towel tree the next day, Patrick's Point the next day, running Fartlek. It was a tremendous, we put in a lot of miles, but it was a lot of fast stuff. Probably more so than most colleges were doing at the time. Everybody was doing long distance training, LSD, slow stuff. Comparatively, we were doing mile repeats and sand dune runs.
Did you take rest days?
Did I? No.
Yeah.
My first year at Humboldt, actually, I was our track coach, but we had cross country coach as well. And he tried to make me stop running on Sundays. And I was like 15, 18 miler Sunday. And I just wouldn't. He got totally frustrated with me, turned me over to Hunt, said, I can't deal with him. You take him. But it was Fort Hess, and he was really quite a great guy and a great coach, but it didn't work for me.
How did you get to the steeplechase then and that coaching without Coach Hunt when you started Steeple? You started before he got there, and did you try it in your freshman year?
No, because it didn't have steeplechase in the conference. But what I had done is at Pierce Junior College in LA had summer meets. Everybody would go to the summer meets from all over Southern Cal. I went to the summer meets, and my dad drove Vince Engel and I down there. And I said on the way down, I said, Dad, I think I'm going to run the steeplechase today. And he goes, I'll turn this car right around if you're going to run that. I'm not driving all the way down to LA for a circus event. And I go, so then I ran it as a young high schooler, and Bob Price was helping me, and he was Cal Berkeley steeplechaser. I ended up winning the high school division that day. On the way home, my dad was totally sold on the steeplechase. The greatest event, you did so good. This is your future. Like, he called it a circus event. And it kind of was at times. People like to dive into the water and not come out. It was a circus event, but I took it serious. So I got to Humboldt as a freshman, and Hunt wasn't there yet because he was still at Buena, and there was no steeplechase. When he got up there, my sophomore year, he came to me on the track before the season started. He said, good news. I said, what's that? He said, our conference, Far Western Conference, is requiring steeplechase in all dual meets and in a conference championships. I go, okay, I can do this. So that's how I got to the steeplechase.
Did the track have one, or
the track had
the pit,
but it didn't have a ramp. You'd come off the track, and you had to cone it on the grass, and then you'd take grass under the barrier, and it's always wet up there anyway, so the grass is soggy and muddy, and so it was a mess. So it was dangerous. So Hunt put down a plywood board. Big plywood board, and that was worse because you had no spikes on your heel, and you try to plant on that board and you'd slip. So they said, okay, I'm going to get a shag rug and tack it down, hammer it down. That was great for about 2 days, and then it got soaking wet. So in practice, I'm approaching our water jump, and I full speed, doing full speed practice. Like once or twice a week, he'd have me go over 4 or 5 times. And I planted the heel, and my heel ripped the rug, and I went flying feet first between the 3-foot-high barrier and the ground, because it's open there. And I flew through the air, and as I flew through, I hit the back of my head on the cement block. And I was funny. I knocked myself out, and I sunk to the bottom of the pool because I had no body fat. So I sunk right to the bottom of the jump. That's 3 feet deep at the base. So they pulled me out, took me to the hospital. I had a concussion. And the conference finals were the weekend, like 5 days later. And you know how when you fall off a horse, they say get back on the horse? It was the hardest thing for me to get over that water jump. And I didn't really have any confidence going into the conference meet, except the conference had really, I think it was at Hayward, they already had a good water jump. So I was safe there, but almost killed myself.
That's great. What did you do training? Did you train with barriers? You train with hurdles in practice?
In practice, on Tuesdays during track, we do like fast stuff, and then Thursdays more pace stuff. When we did the pace stuff, Coach and I put the regular hurdle in the second or third lane in all the right spots. And I'd do the workout with our Roby and Engel and these guys flying around the track. Every time I'd get to a hurdle, I'd step out to the second lane, jump the hurdle, and jump back in. They're mile repeats and stuff. I didn't try to do 200s over. And then the other thing we did after practice, we had a lot of steeplechasers on the team because we were known as Steeplechase College. And so we had the hurdles put every 30 yards on the grass, and you do your warm down over 3 hurdles back and forth, just easy getting over. That's pretty much all I did.
Yeah, it was very successful. Your sophomore year, you were All-American in the steeple.
I was second.
By then, not winning, how'd you take second place?
First of all, I was a sophomore, and the guy who won was a senior. So I thought, he's gone. This is my event now. He beat me. Dale Drennan, I think he's from Texas. He may be out there somewhere, but he won that thing, and then he went on. And I didn't mind getting second too bad. But I got my senior year, I got second or third at the conference cross country, which was I owned that conference. And we ran high altitude at Reno. And they gave me, I got a third place medal, and we were going home in the checker car that we had, rolled down the window. In the middle of the game, there's that medal somewhere. I threw that sucker out. Everybody's, what are you doing? And I go, I don't want this thing. I was third. I chucked it.
That's great. How teammates that you mentioned, how did they compare in attitude towards competition?
They came to Humboldt to win. They knew that this is why you come here. You don't come here just to fool around. They all had the same desire to win, but we had fun. It was really fun. It was a great group of guys. We're still all friends. We Zoom once a month. There's usually 12 to 15 of us, all from the 60s and 70s. It was just a family, and the Hunts made it a family.
I'm not sure Humboldt was on the track map before you guys got there, but it certainly was afterwards. And let's talk about what it was like to go to college then as an athlete. What'd they give you?
First of all, I'll show you this.
Go.
It just was written this year. It's called Running Behind the Redwood Curtain. It was compiled by my college roommate and best friend, Vince Engel, and written by him, although I've written a lot of it, the stories. It's just a bunch of great stories about Humboldt and what it was like to go to Humboldt in the 60s and 70s. Vince and I decided we wanted to train together and go to college. And he didn't have the grades to get to Whittier and Pepperdine, which in Occidental, which wanted me. They wanted him too, but he didn't have the grades. He said, I got to go to junior college. He did. And he said, but I want to come to Humboldt up in the next year, get my grades up. So my dad drove us up there. We didn't even know if they had a track program. We were just out of high school. But we get up there and we go, wow, look at this track. This is incredible. This is beautiful. It was all weather track in Redwood Bowl. And so now let's see if they have a track team at all. So we went in the gym and we found the school track records, and we looked at each other and we're like, every event is worse than our high school team. Vince had run a 154 half, and I think the school record was 157 up here. And I'd run like a 928 2-mile, and the school record was like 945. So Vince and I looked at each other and said, they got a track team. Now, do we want to be a big fish in a little pond? We went, yeah, I think we do. So I came back. I went up my freshman year. Vince went to Citrus Junior College and then came up. So we all had the desire to win, and we all were big fish in a small pond.
This is all walk-on, right?
Yeah. Like our conference, you couldn't have scholarships. So our conference had University of Reno, Nevada, all foreigners, all on scholarship. And they swore that I was on scholarship. It wasn't. Our scholarship was Mrs. Hunt, coach's wife, apple pie, type our term papers. And that was my scholarship.
What did you study at Humboldt?
I started off in biology, botany, and did really the first year. And the second year, they said, okay, now you have to take labs. And the labs are every Friday afternoon. I go, I can't do that. Every Friday afternoon, we're driving to 8-hour drive to Chico, 5-hour drive to Chico, San Francisco, Portland. I'm gone. So I changed to anatomy. I got your anatomy, same thing at the end. They said, no, can't do anatomy. So I ended up at PE, physical education.
How big a traveling team did you have And how'd you guys move around? Those long drives. Yeah, you guys were going to some of the big meets and
Yeah, we'd go all the way down to Fresno, and that is like a 7-hour, 8-hour drive. Yeah, it was tough. We traveled in what was called a checker. It was 4 doors to a side, 12-seater. Coach would drive, and he'd have 11, 12 guys in there, and we'd be in that car, stinky, smelly, yelling, all for 7 hours down. Pretty quiet and going down because we had a track meet. Coming back, we were out of control. We had some fun times. I'm surprised we didn't on that old road, and the way people drive, and some of them make a wine stop at Napa, and it was crazy.
with this success, an All-American national champion, and you had by then done some road racing and had success. When did it occur to you that I might be doing this as a big activity for a long time?
Leaving college is always the point where most people, myself included, went, okay, now what? Do I want to continue doing this? I'm not going to be at Humboldt. Can't stay. Humboldt's great to go to school, but once you're out of school, get the hell out. You'll end up in Arcata Plaza drunk all the time. So I thought, okay, I can't stay here. So I went home and lived with my parents for a while, and then got drafted. And then, now what am I going to do? So I got on the Army track team, got hurt. And so I got off, finally got injury-free my second year of Army. And I did okay. And I thought, okay, now I'll get home and I'll train for the Olympic trials and see what happens. But I was in San Antonio, and you try to train in San Antonio. Whew.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's personal, but what about your time in the Army? And you were a CO, conscientious objector, right?
Yes.
What was that process like, and why did you pick that?
There were 2 types of conscientious objector. One that says, I won't serve in this Army. I'm not going, do whatever you want. The conscientious objector, the 1AO, which was what I was, I'll serve in the Army, but I'm not going to carry a weapon. So therefore, do what you want with me. So they made me a medic. And it's Vietnam time, and they said, you're a medic, you don't have to carry a weapon. You said, I guarantee you get to Vietnam, you'll pick up a rifle. I said, then I'm not going, because I'm not picking up a rifle. So I fought that, and I was screwed over a little bit in that I was in big trouble. Running saved me. I ran a 10K in San Antonio. I was at Fort Sam Houston,
Oh, yeah.
San Antonio. And running saved me because I ran a 10K in the streets and won it. And the base commander saw that I won it, and they wanted to beat Fort Hood in the upcoming track meet because the inter-services stuff. He said, son, I'm going to pull you out of medical school, and you're going to stay here and work in the gym, if that's all right with you. I go, that'll be just fine. So he pulled me out, and I worked in the San Antonio gym. They have a nice gym on, at least they did, on site. And I folded jocks. The jocks were big back then. Anyway, folded jocks, folded T-shirts, played racquetball or with the generals who came through and needed a partner, that type of stuff. Then I ran track for San Antonio. Army track meet team was stationed out in LA at Fort MacArthur, which is San Pedro. And so I spent the last year, almost a year at San Pedro on the Army track team.
I just want to get a feel for how this worked. Coach Hunt had prepared you for self-coaching.
Yep.
What about this time? Did you have any coaching? They let you go, and did you have anybody to train with at your level?
On the Army track team, they did.
Yeah.
They had some really good. Kenny Moore was there, and Mike Manley, Dave Alvestadt, not Alvestadt. Anyway, I had guys to train with on the Army track team. Before I got drafted and I left Humboldt, it was about an 8-month period where I ran for Pete Peterson, run from the Striders. And so I trained with Pete until I got drafted. And then when I got out of the Army, I joined the Striders again. But I didn't really train with them. Because I lived in Ventura, I just trained on my own.
Right.
I was a Beverly Hills Strider, and then they changed the names to Southern Cal Striders, Beverly Hills Striders, and Tobias Striders. That's what it was, Tobias Clothing Company.
Just put this on the calendar then. What were the 2 years you won the steeplechase, and when did you get out of the Army? Let's just get that year right.
Yeah, 68 and 69 at Humboldt. It wasn't Division II, it was small college. There were only two divisions.
Oh.
Two divisions. So I was college, small college, university, small college. And the champion of the small college got to go to the university division. So I actually competed both years in the university division, but didn't do that well. My senior year, I thought I'd place second or third, but and it's a bad excuse, but I got knocked over in the water jump and I never really recovered place-wise. It's rough sometimes. Four guys going to the water jump. You've seen the steeplechase. People fall.
Yeah. I ran it when I turned 61 because I thought, wow, look, there's very few people signing up for this. Yeah. I won the Ontario Championship, I think, out of attrition of runners. Yeah.
Well, if you run seniors, didn't they lower
that when you turn 60, it goes down 6 inches. That makes a big difference.
Big difference. Because those hurdles, they're not hurdles, they're barriers.
Yeah, they don't give. Yeah, we actually had a girl in the one Masters meet we had here. A woman went over and I don't know if she hurdled or jumped from the water jump, but she broke her ankle. Oh. She landed on that angle of the water pit going up and broke her ankle. We had to pull her out. Yeah, it's not for the gentle. Anyway, let's talk about what then your vision was now coming out of the Army as a runner. And so that is 72 Olympics have gone by, right? And what is your self-assessment of what you could accomplish in the future when you got out of the Army?
I was in the 72 Olympics, but I was in the marathon. I just got out of the Army. I was in the marathon trials. I wasn't in the Olympics. I was in the Olympic trials. And I wasn't ready for that. I don't know. I ran probably 2:28 or something. But I thought, okay, you know what? I got to get out of San Antonio. If I'm going to make the 76 Olympic team, I'm not going to make it in San Antonio. Quality of running, quality of racing, quality of runners, nothing. So I came back to Ventura and worked for my dad in a sporting goods store. So I had plenty of time off, and I thought, I might be able to make this 76 Olympic team. And frankly, almost did. I ran really well in the trial, in the heat. I ran like 20, I qualified second or third. And then in the finals, I came this far from making the team. It was partly because Shorter and Rogers had already declared they were in the marathon. They weren't going to run the 10,000. So they said, look, if you're third man and fourth man and I'm third man and he's third man, you're still going because they're taking three. So anyway, I finished seventh. Mendoza dove for the tape. Ted Castaneda was next to him. I had nowhere to go, so I dove in between them. I was odd man out there. But so Mendoza got to go on the team and he was fifth. And I ran really well, running basically 28:30 twice in 3 days. Good enough. I thought I'd make it with that.
Maybe this is personal talk about, but your physical attributes are remarkable. You're up there on the record, the legends for VO2 max and body fat. Talking about your fast twitch, slow twitch muscles, and the abundance of slow twitch muscles. What about those 10Ks? What was your strategy there and finishing speed? How would you approach those?
I knew the runners that I was competing against. I knew their strengths and their weaknesses, and I tried to play off of that as much as I could. I knew my weakness was going to be in the last 100, that if I'm close to anybody in the last 100, good chance they're going to beat me. So I had to get out there, and so I would try to go out hard if I could. So my slow twitch fibers were really, like you said, were really high, and my fast twitch were really low. And the question became, okay, this guy he's so slow, but why can he run an 8:31 2-mile, which I did. I ran 8:31 2-mile. I thought he was slow. Turns out through training, you can increase the efficiency of the fast twitch and a little bit the size of the fast twitch and the enzymes that go with it. I guess best way to put it, very little fast twitch, but it was very effective. It was very efficient. So that's why I could run an 8:31 2-mile and be as slow as I was. I was basically all out. I'd run 4:16. 15. People say, what would you do different if you could change things? And I think one thing I would do is back maybe in the 76, right after the Olympic trials, and I'm not going, I think I'd have taken that whole year and trained for the mile, because I'd run a 4:03 mile, the best I'd done, and never run under 4. I'm sure I could have, And I wanted to, especially looking back, because if I talk to people now that know running, but not that much, they go, "Oh, you were a runner. Were you good?" I go, "That was pretty good. Did you ever break 4 minutes?" No. Oh, I guess never mind.
Yeah, there's a lot of great. Mark Hunter talked about this because his son, same thing. He never concentrated on the mile, and his son's a 3:57 high school miler, and we could have been another dad something. And Ron Tabb talks about choosing to run the marathon when this is it. I'm in 3:59 shape, and he didn't do the race. He said, "No, I'm gonna listen to coach." This question comes up when I think about this self coaching that you had and the training in PE, but you were coached and taught to self-coach at these lower distances, maybe up through 10K and a little bit more, but you had success at the higher distances, the American records on the track and the hour, the 25K championship. You could run those. Did you get advice on training for the marathon and these longer runs, or did you self-coach all through that too?
I self-coached. I knew enough about me that I couldn't run a marathon. I was a terrible marathoner. Yeah, you look at the times, you go, no, I was a terrible marathoner. I'd beat a lot of these guys like Tom Fleming, great marathoners. In a 10K, I'd beat him by 25 seconds easily. I couldn't beat him in a marathon. I couldn't beat Benji Durden in a marathon. I just couldn't run a marathon. If there was an Olympic distance half marathon, I'd have been on that team. I could run about an hour, and then I was done. I didn't want to do it anymore. I couldn't do anything more than an hour here today. An hour is my limit for anything.
Let's talk about that record. And had you done that before and after? You set the record for the 1 hour on the track. How many times had you done that?
First of all, it was a big event. You don't maybe only at UCSB where I did it a couple of times, it'd be maybe only 100 people, but there'd be 20 sites the same day across the country. And of course, you're in San Antonio, which I did run the hour run in San Antonio. It's hot, you're not going to run as far, but UCSB was perfect. The 4 American records I broke were that day was the 10 mile, the 20K, and the hour run, and the 15K, I think. But like the 10 mile was only like 47:10 or something, but I still had 13 minutes to run. In 1 hour, I wanted to get past 20K. That was my goal. That would be back-to-back 30Ks. I think I had about 100. I got there at 59, 20 or something. So I had another 40 seconds to run, and that got me 12 miles, 811 yards. And then that was an American record till Bill Rogers said, that's something I want to do. He called me and said, "Will you pace me?" And I go, "Bill, I'd love to pace you, but if I'm going to do it, I'm going to race you, not pace you." And he goes, "Yeah, that's even better." And I go, "Yeah, I had a trip. I forget where I went. I think I went to China for a month. I was on that China team that went for a month.
All over the country, yeah.
All over China, yeah. We competed 3 times.
Let's talk about World Cross Country, because World Cross Country has gone through various changes. Number of runners scored, number of runners on the field per team, all those things, selection criteria. How did you get picked for the first World Cross Country team? And the rest?
It was a trials, a race.
At that point, they were doing all qualifying races, right?
Yeah, qualifying race, the top. And the juniors, I think the women had their own event, but the juniors had their race, we had ours, and it's the top 9, I think. Only 7 could. I don't think there was a limit. I don't know. Maybe 9. I know at least 7 because you have to have a team. I won the trials twice, so that I made those 2 teams. And then the one in Florida, Bill Rogers approached me and said, "Gary, I don't know what I'm going to do here. I don't have spikes. My coach has told me to just hang on. You always make the team. Do you mind if I just hang on you and you drag me to the team?" I go, "Sure, kid. Sure, kid. I'll take care of you." Wasn't really anybody yet. You had no spikes even. We roomed together, and fortunately, I had brought my spikes and my shoes, which looked very much like the ones in the back there with it. But Rogers goes, look at your shoes. Where'd you get them? Oh, when you get to be good, they'll give them to you. I'm going to get free shoes. I go, yeah. He said, can I use the one you're not going to use? Because we had the same size feet. So I let him use my shoes. And so it was in Morocco. The race was in Morocco on a horse race track. So Frank Shorter was on the team and Bringhurst, and we finished. And I was 26th, was one of my worst finishes. But Frank Shorter was like 24th, right in front of me. And he goes, man, isn't Rogers run great today? And I turned and looked behind me like, where is he? He goes, he's in third. I go, what? My shoes got third that day. So then I go back to Ventura and I hear on the radio that Bill Rogers wins the Boston Marathon. Unknown Bill Rogers. And I'm thinking, oh boy, his life is going to change. So sure enough, next time I saw him, he was outfitted, and I forget I don't think it was New Balance. I forget who. Somebody had outfitted him and paid him and had shoes. He was Boston Billy from then on. So he still thanks me for that. He says, "You make."
That's great. That's great. Yeah. You had a lot of travel with the USA teams, like you mentioned, China. I know you competed against Russia. I don't think you went to Russia.
That was Drake.
We had one of the home meets in
every other time home.
What about compensation money, under the table payments and stuff? You were a little bit ahead of that for when that was happening. Were you getting appearance fees, or were you getting expensed as an individual apart from those USA teams for some of your races?
I was a New Balance runner. New Balance paid me $600 a month to wear their shoes. They also had incentive program. Like when I got second at Boston Marathon, they gave me $6,000 right up front. But other than that, there wasn't much money from coming my way. I can tell you that. I could get a pair of shoes. I was happy.
What about all those USA track teams?
Mm-hmm.
You went to a lot of places. Your running career is pretty much intense for about 20 years, and you fit in a lot of USA team track meets all over the world on from South Pacific, Asia, Europe,
China,
Caribbean.
I figured out that I went 26 countries in my career at no expense to me. Obviously, everything was paid for. So there you're talking about under money. I got valuable trips, 26 countries representing the U.S. And the first time ever that I was in San Antonio, and I got my USA top for the first time because I got to run in Puerto Rico. Guamo, Puerto Rico was like a 15K or something. And Lassie Viren and those guys, the Finns, were in Puerto Rico training. So that's why the race happened. So obviously they'd been there. They were acclimated. They pretty much ran off and left everybody. But yeah, I went all over Japan 3 times, Cook Islands. That was a different story, but Cook Islands 16 times.
16 times at Cook Islands.
Yeah. And that was to my wife, because she won the race every year for 13 years.
You can run around that whole island.
Yeah, it's 31K around the island.
That's the race you're talking about. They have 2 buses. One goes each way around the island, I think.
Yeah. It's 31
road.
It's called a week of running. I assume they still have it. And they have relay. We had relay teams, which would be relay around the island, a cross island jungle race, fun runs. So it was a week of running. I'd actually take a group. I had as many as 21 sign up for my group one year, but usually it was about
nice.
4. And then Ruth had won the race every year, and she'd get a free trip. So free from Air New Zealand. I guess we're going again.
That's great. Yeah, that's a place that has significant experience and success with Olympic rowing. They've got some big hunky. Yeah, it's a big part of their culture. But the running, I don't know. When I was there, you don't see a lot of people out running.
Yeah. You were in Cook Islands?
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
I was not in any kind of shape to try to run the whole way around the island, but I did some running there in the Hash House area. Everywhere I go, I get on the Hash House Harriers, and there is a Hash House Harriers club there. So what was the selection criteria? That's a lot of international races. Was it individual coaches, administrators? Who would invite you? How would how those usually work?
The way I got a lot of my trips were 2 ways. One, in 75 at UCLA, there was the national championships, I ran really well. I was third American, I think. And they select a lot on the 10,000 on the track, and they selected from that. Rogers and Shorter, again, beat me. And both of those, hey, you'd call Bill Rogers and go, hey, you want to go to whatever, Japan around a 10K? I'd love to, but I'm getting paid to go to someplace. So those guys would turn them down. Who was next in line? Me. So I'd get that call from AAU about once a month. Hey, these guys aren't going. You want to go? I'm going. Let's go. That was one way. The other way was when I was as a strider, Pete Peterson was actually more of a distance coach, but he coached everybody. And he didn't have a lot of distance guys, and I was one of them for a while. So anytime they take Lennox Miller or Bob Segrin or whatever to a big track meet, and of course Pete would have to go with them, and he'd tell the promoter, I want Tuttle to come too. Okay. No, who's he? Segrin and Lennox Miller aren't coming unless he goes. Oh, okay, bring him along. Can he run? Yeah, he's pretty good. I got a lot of trips that way, which thanks to Shorter Rogers turning down trips. And that one race, they selected off that race for about 2 years. So I was just always going somewhere.
Yeah. You talk a bit humbly about this stuff, but you were marathon national champion a couple years. So you look back and say, I wasn't that good at it. But yeah, you did have great success at all those distances, including in the big race. Do you think, were you a big racer? Did you outperform? You were just a spectacular athlete, but you beta breakers, what made you win? How did you win? Were you just better? Was it competitive?
Yeah, I guess to both. You got to be faster to beat somebody. But there were people I raced a lot, and I knew their weaknesses. I don't think it mind. Dave Babaraki and I were West Coast runners. And if I showed up and he showed up, that was first and second. We knew that going in, but we didn't know who was going to be which. So I'd look, oh, crap. Babaraki's here. I'm going to have to run today. And he'd say the same thing. Babaraki had a point in his running. If I pushed hard, like we did a Griffith Park 15K, I pushed hard at about 10K, and he went with me. I pushed hard again a little further. He went with me, stayed with me. About the third, fourth time I pushed, and a couple minutes later, he always did this. When he did that, I knew he was struggling. And if I go now, he's not going to react. And I'd hear that little, and I just hammer it. That's how I beat Babaraki. My wife was a good runner, and she wasn't when we met. She was a runner, but not a good one. But anyway, she saw my career as I got better. She said, don't you ever win? Second of Boston. And I said, the better you get, the less you win, frankly, because you start racing faster. I said, you want me to win all the time? Let's just stay in California. I'll win them all. So I don't know why. I didn't like losing. I was tough. I trained hard. I was prepared. I liked to race, all that.
Let's talk a little bit about the shoe business and kind of the shenanigans that went on. When did you get into it? What was the status of the sporting shoes then? How'd you get into that?
I had my own running store for 21 years. How many years?
30-something.
No, my wife just 30-something. 30-something years, and paid me to run, basically, because the year I got second at Boston Marathon, I came home 2 days later. That was the best-selling day I think I ever had. People said, oh, second place Boston, I need those shoes. That was important to my running.
When you started that shoe store, how many were there?
I was probably the first or second shoe store on the specialty running. Gary Murky had a store somewhere back east. He and I and John Loshorn for runners, the three of us pretty much were the pioneers, one East Coast, two West Coast. I started because I worked for my dad in a sporting goods store. I put together a running section, and it was very successful. I couldn't break off from my dad. My dad sold his half. So I said, okay, I'm going to do my own thing then. And so I started selling New Balance out of the back of my car and Dolphin shorts. New Balance and Dolphin shorts.
Wow.
The hot shorts with the stripes and stuff.
Yeah.
And I was doing really well, and I'd go to New Balance and pick them up and go back east to run Falmouth or whatever. And New Balance said, hey, you got to get a store. We can't be selling shoes. We're going big time here. You're not going to be able to keep up, and it's bad for our image. So I said, okay, I'll do the store. So I did the store and started bringing in shoes. And, of course, Runner's World had their shoe survey, and I had an access ahead of time who Runner's World was picking. It was supposedly locked up in Bob Anderson's vault, but I had somebody who would tell me what. And so one year, like it was Brooks Vantage, I think it was Brooks was number one. And I knew going in, and I ordered a whole bunch of Brooks. And Brooks guy looked at me like, why are you doing this? I go, I think they're probably going to be popular here very soon. So that was the shenanigans right there.
Yeah. Did you know Fidipides in LA? Hash House Harrier owned one of those out there. So I know a guy out there that was in course marshal for about half of the 84 marathon course. And he stocked it with hashers. But let's talk about looking at the Olympics over 80 and 84 trials. What was it like for you in 80, knowing we weren't going, but you qualified and ran trials, right?
Yeah, I ran the trials. That was I think the year that we spent 3 weeks in China. Don Cardong was on that team. And Don and I looked at each other after 3 weeks and said, our chance of making an Olympic team is probably not going to happen. But we qualified time-wise. In 80, I was there. I'm trying to think about how all this happened. I actually made the Olympic trials again in 84 at the age of 30, whatever it was, 7. But I knew at that point, I was just glad. I knew I'd always gotten out of the heat and into the finals 4 times. But I knew this time, I'm just glad to be here. But I'd run my fastest time ever that year at Mount Saccharin, 28:26 at the age of 37. Wow. It was the fastest I'd ever run. I'd run some 28:30s and a lot of 28:40s. So I was there. I looked around and see young Craig Virgin and young Cummings and I forget who the other ones were, Pat Porter, stuff like that. I'm like, I'm just glad to be here. And I didn't get out of my heat during the trial. No.
What about 80 and the team not going?
It didn't affect me because it didn't make the team. So I like Jimmy Carter, so I didn't want to come down hard on him. But in hindsight, I think it might have been okay, except for the Olympians. And they did have they had the, what they call them, the USA Sports Games or something. The makeup, they had their own little Olympic get together. And I got part of that because Mr. Hunt was the West Coast distance coach for that. So he called me and said, hey, Syracuse, you're going to run a marathon for me. I go, Coach, you want to run a marathon in Syracuse? He goes, you owe me, Tuttle. I go, okay, I'll be there. I ran a marathon for him 3 times in those.
You mentioned a lot of great runners of the whole period you're racing. Prefontaine's name hadn't come up yet. What about your running with Prefontaine? And you went to the camps with him, right? You went.
Yeah. I got 3 good stories about Prefontaine. Number one, we were going to Humboldt to Portland State, and we wanted to stop by University of Oregon because we thought we were as good, but not quite. But anyway, we stop and we go into the locker room, and they had it written in tape. They had the names, and over Pre's locker, it was Pre, P-R-E. So Scobie takes his marks a lot and puts Nadel. Nobody was in there. It was just us guys. We probably shouldn't have been there. He puts prenatal, and then we take off. I never heard back from that. And then I was fortunate when I went to the aerobic center in Dallas, and they did the 5-day testing. And one of the things they did was take a piece of your calf, and that's how they got the fast and slow twitch stuff. But they actually had to go in and into the muscle and cut it. And Pre was deathly afraid of that, as we all were. I ruined my career. I'm not doing it. And it turned out you go one at a time. You can watch the guy in front of you. Pre was the guy in front of me for whatever reason. And he was crying and he was scared to death. He did it and he was sure he shouldn't have, but apparently it never bothered him. So he ended
What do you remember? How was it? Was it a biopsy needle?
Yeah, it was
a jet puncher. Yeah.
It was a thing that went across, slide across, and stick it in and cut it and slide across. It was not fun. But and then the other one, Prefontaine set the American record indoors, a 2 mile at Jack in the Box, I think, and he ran 8:20 something. And I was third that day. That's when I ran my PR. And Suman Nyambui, I think, was second. And so he was sitting down. You might want to, I don't know. I'm going to say this, you can do what you want with it. After the race, he was sitting on the runway for the pole vault, and Shorter was sitting next to him. Shorter had gotten like fifth or sixth, and I'd gotten third. And I said, great run. Nice, congratulations. And he goes, hey, thanks, Gary. How'd you do? I go, he didn't say how'd you. He said, he didn't say anything. And I said, I'm happy. I got third, ran to 8:31 or whatever it was. Shorter said, who the hell asked you? I go, you're right, Frank. Nobody asked me. So I like Frank. I don't know if you want to use that or not, but whatever.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. And yeah, it happened. Did you run with Jerry Lindgren at all?
Oh, yeah. Jerry, another good story. Jerry moved to Oxnard after he disappeared from sight. He went to Oxnard and he worked in the pizza place at Oxnard. And then he ran around Ventura a lot. I took him up in the hills I can see the hill right there. Took him over the hills to run. And so then Ruth and I were at the Hawaii Marathon, and he was in Hawaii unbeknownst to everybody, and he's running the other way. And I go, Jerry. Yeah.
So, oh my God, you just saw him driving on the road.
He didn't rat him out, though.
Yeah, I talked to him. I interviewed him last year, and I know he got back to the States 60th high school reunion or something. His coach was still alive, and they got to do a little tribute and interview with him. Yeah,
Jerry, great guy, a lot of fun.
Yeah, he's funny to talk to. I called him up I texted him or called him up. And I said, can we actually record today? He said, all right, 4:00. You're 1 minute late. I'm only going to speak in Russian.
He actually was one of my biggest inspirations. When I was in high school at Buena, he ran in the Coliseum meet against the Russians.
Oh, yeah.
That's when he beat the Russians, the dual meet. And I was in the stands with a date, which was really not what I usually did, but I was in the stands with a date. And I said to her, wow, I'm going to be in this race someday. I vowed to, and I was. I made that USA Russia meet. That, like you said, it was in Duke that year.
I don't remember anything about the results or what was happening. What was there? That's 2 for each team. So there's 4 guys on the track.
Yep.
And you ran 10K. What was that race like?
No, it was awful. First of all, 4 guys on the track at Duke Stadium, hotter than heck that day. I got no kick, and I know what Charlie McGuire's my other teammate. He can kick like crazy. So Charlie comes up to me and says, Gary, don't take the pace out. Let's just sprint with him because it's too hot. I said, Charlie, I got no chance to do that. I got to take it out. He goes, no, don't do that. I go, sorry. So I took it out hard. They stayed right with me. I got out kicked by all 3 of them. And I think Charlie was second. I was fourth. So my 4th place got 1 point. It was like 5, 3, 2, 1, I think. So I got 1 point for the USA team. It was the hardest 1 point they ever got. I tell you that. I earned that.
Yeah, I know Frank Gurman. He ran in 1965 in this race, and it was one of the very first nationally televised. Like Jim McKay announced the 800, and Gurman won, and Tommy Farrell, I think, was on the team, and he was hurt. He basically finished 300 yards behind. It was like, just got to cross the line and get a point.
Right, yeah, get a point.
I'm always interested in the international interaction with Russian teams. I talked to Jerry and some of the other people who've been in the race. What was it like on U.S. soil with the Russians?
At Duke University, the 2 dorms, the American dorm and the Russian dorm, were right across from each other. You could peer across maybe 30 yards and see into each other's rooms. And so we could see, so they came over calling us a bunch of Yankee dogs, imperialists, that whole thing that went on in the 60s and 70s. And we were the imperialist swine. And I watched some of their top athletes blowing out the window. So that was a bit of a hypocrisy.
Not the distance runners.
No, I didn't see the distance runners.
Yeah.
But then Levi's sponsored it. And so Levi showed up with a big van of clothes, and the Russians got to go down first. We went after the Russians. I'd watch Valery Borzov, for instance. I'd watch him go out of his dorm, go down the stairs. We could see him. He'd pick up pants and jacket, go back up, put it in his closet, go back down 2, 3, 4, 5 times. Like we got the Americans, they said, we'll have to get back to you tomorrow because we're out of clothes. Those guys just helped themselves. So I found that very hypocritical that we were the capitalist dogs.
Did the ice get broken after the meet? Was there handshaking and trading of pins or anything afterwards? Or?
They tried to make it work, but mostly we had a big party afterwards. It was a 2-day track meet, I think. So maybe 1 day, I don't remember. But we, Shanana, the great group,
yeah,
they actually were the band and singers, and we all got together. And for the most part, the Russian guys would dance and the Russian women would stand and watch. The guys would dance with each other. I went and asked their 1,500 meter runner to dance, the girl, and she had no part of me. So I said, okay, fine.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah,
you did your part for diplomacy. Right?
Yeah, did our part for diplomacy.
Well, I want to ask you also about coaching. You, as a basketball, I don't know if you've ever coached a team of runners. You basketball coach, successful. Mm-hmm. Now, through all this, through maturing as a fiery competitor, now working with youth and coaching, how does that competitive spirit and knowing that you had to go through some reassessment, how does that affect you as a coach, and how do you enjoy coaching?
I think I grew up long before I had to coach. I never had a technical. I didn't yell at kids. I coached. I was a good coach, no doubt about it. I was a good game coach, for sure. And the way I got involved, of course, I was a basketball nut anyway. But a good buddy of mine, Ted Cotty, who was also a runner, he coached at Nordhoff High School, the girls' varsity. And when I finally retired from running, as not racing, and got hurt anyway, he said, hey, you got time to coach basketball? And I go, yeah. He says, you got the girls' JV team. I go, okay. So I coached girls' JV for 13 years with him. And then I coached boys' JV, or South Frosh at another school for 3 years. And that was a private school. Nordhoff was girls, public, and Villanova, not Villanova High School, it was private school boys. And if I ever give a choice again, the girls' public school is so much better than the boys' private. The boys' private, their parents paid their way there. Everybody deserves to play full-time. They're special kids. They're great kids, but the parents were the problem, I think, really. Yeah. But on the girls' side, they were just pleased to be there and play hard. And the parents usually were pleased that I was giving them the opportunity to play. The first year I ever coached, we were 20-1. I thought, this is easy. We played the first game ever that I'd coached. We won, and I'm embarrassed to say this, we won 56-0. We fouled on purpose. They couldn't make a free throw. I had my big shooting threes. I had my little girl posting up, but they couldn't score. And it's fun. I thought all through the practice, I didn't know what to expect of this team. I thought, I wonder if we'll ever score this year. I wonder if we'll ever win. We're pretty bad. And on the opening tip, we had a play we ran. 3 seconds into the first game, we'd scored 2 points. And I'm like, I guess we're going to score this year. We're pretty good. We ended up winning. We won the tournament. So anyway, yeah, basketball was the thing. Everybody thinks, yeah, you're a coach, man. Yeah, you must have been a good track coach. I did coach track 2 years, but at Villanova School. When I was there, they needed a coach as well. So Andrew Cottle.
Yeah. Did your basketball teams run a lot? Did you?
No, not too much. They didn't like to run much. When I coached cross country and track, they didn't like to run much then either.
Let's pull that book up again and just center it on the screen and tell people exactly so they can find it. It's Run Behind the Redwood Curtain, and then it's got Vince Engel's name on there. And just a little bit, raise it up so we can see the picture of the runner there. It's a lone. Do you know who that is?
That's Mike Williams, who owns the jogging shop in Arcata.
Okay. We have a little bookshelf on this little website for the podcast. Good. So
you can also, this is the hardcover. They have a soft cover. It's a really, I think it's a good book. Like I said, when I got up there in the 60s, when I got up there as a freshman, there was no program. And yet by the time Hunt left, and by the time I left and Hunt was there, it was a national class distance and steeplechase. And so people said, what's going on in Humboldt? What's happening? Let's go up and take a look. So we had a lot of people come up as runners and go, this is cool. And once you come up to Humboldt Run, you ain't going anyplace else.
Just the beautiful outdoors. And yeah, you're a part of that. You're in the Hall of Fame. I don't know, besides Humboldt, if there's some others, but you're in the Humboldt State Hall of Fame. Yeah.
So Scobie's in the Hall of Fame up there, and Smead and Vince Ingle, who wrote the book. Mike Williams, I think, is in the Hall. Grimes and Conover was Hunt's Olympian.
Looking back now, or looking forward now, what kind of fan are you? Are you still a track fanatic? Are you watching the things in between the Olympics and stuff?
Yeah, I'm still a track fan. I was a track starter for 35 years, high school level, until about 3 years ago. I was involved in track starting. My wife and I went to the World Championships in Paris. We've been to a lot of the Olympic trials to watch. But I'm like a codgety old man, almost a little jealous of how fast.
Let's just talk about off-ramping and the end when you said, okay, I am done competing. I know the trials for 84, you said, I'm just glad to be here, but you did some more racing and you got on the bike and did some racing. But for running, how did you off-ramp that and how'd you deal with it?
Actually, my hip was bothering me, and that I was limping and I was no longer fast. Actually, I was running in Ventura about a mile from here downtown, and you've got the windows, you know how the shop windows and they're reflective, and you can see yourself when you run by.
Yes.
Holy crap. I'm doing a disservice to running. Everybody thinks I'm this long time runner, and now look at me. So I pretty much said, I'm done. And frankly, I can ride a bike with no pain of any kind anywhere. So I've been on a bike forever now. I became a good bike rider for a while when I won the Death Valley to Mount Whitney 2-day road climb, 100 miles, first day 75, second day is 25 straight up to the Whitney Portal on the road.
That calls for power and slow twitch too. Yeah.
It was in the 40 and over. So I was racing all these former Cat 1, Cat 2, Cat 3 pros. And when I beat them, they did not like it. A runner come down and beat them. I don't blame them, because I never wanted to get beat by a triathlete or a cyclist in running. Come on, you guys are not going to beat me.
We'll just talk about her when she's not here. When did your wife, what was the timing of her racing, off-ramping or scaling down?
First of all, she just got inducted last month into the Ventura County Sports Hall of Fame. So she joins me and my dad and Scobie. When we met, she was running cross country. She's 10 years younger. So I had to wait a while, about 5-6 years before I could, because she was just still in junior college. She went off to college, came back and said, hey, I'm back. And I said, oh, okay, that's cool. She ended up running really well. She got 19th in the Olympic trials for women marathon in Houston, 241 for 19th. And she had to qualify by running under 243, I think, at Portland. So she was the local, she stuck to California a lot, so she did win most everything. She also won the Clam Beach, this race up there, Clam Beach. I don't know if you can even see that teacher.
Yeah, that's a nice one.
She won, she was Queen Clam one year.
That's great. Yeah, let's just talk about one more, Beta Breakers. Everybody's heard of it, and getting on the winner list of that's cool.
Yeah, that was fun. Winning that race back in the day when it was 50, 60,000. I don't know what it is now. Not quite as many, but it's a lot. Jimmy Moore, I think, had won it the year before, and then I won it. Jimmy Crawford and Phil Kemp, I think, were second and third that day. Yeah, so my dad and my mom were there, and my sister, she was 10, she jogged it. My dad and my mom jumped in the car to get to the finish line of the Beta Breakers. And I was already done by the time they could get there. So my dad said, how'd you do? Well, I won. You won? Yeah. My dad was my biggest fan. He would act real nonchalant till he met some of his buddies. And then he would just brag about his running son. Yeah, well, I got seventh one year in a costume, and nobody knew who I was. I had a plastic face and a little blowhole to breathe. And I was running really hard. I had an outfit that's a toga, it was good to run in. It was like a toga thing. And I'm running next to Humboldt's #1 runner at the time, and this is long after I'm gone, Ramon Morales, and he was like running 6th place, and I'm running right next to him. He goes, "Who are you?" Your worst nightmare. He goes, "I hear you. Did you start with us?" I go, "Yeah, and I'm going to beat you to the finish." Then when I got there, I went, "Surprise!" He goes, "Oh, no wonder."
So you and Gary Finelli on Halloween together.
Yeah, Gary was great. He always dressed up. Hey, you got to have fun. And that's, I think, when I look back, if it wasn't fun, I didn't do it. And I'm still that way in life. It's not fun, forget it. But I love to run. I love to compete. I was good at it, so why not?
Yeah, I'm glad you like to talk about it, and I appreciate your time. And a lot of people are going to enjoy hearing these stories. Yeah, the little stories that came up.
They're all in the book.
Yeah, we'll push the book and make sure people know about that too. Personally, I'd be interested in finding out why and how you enjoyed your political career. Why did you get into politics? And was that bumpy? Has that been bumpy?
I'm not in politics anymore, but I served 8 years on the city council. I was deputy mayor. And even my mom got mad at me on occasion on my votes. How did you vote for that? I guess what I'm trying to say is you're not going to make friends in politics.
Yeah,
I did the job and I enjoyed it, but it was time. I wasn't enjoying it anymore. It's very time consuming if you do it right.
Yeah. There was another thing I wanted to ask you about. Something happened in the shoe business where you had to be a whistleblower.
Oh, yeah, on Big 5 and New Balance.
That's something I can record. If you don't mind explaining it either way.
Yeah, that's no problem.
What happened with that?
I sold New Balance, and I sold a lot of them, and I put my reputation on New Balance. And all of a sudden, I'd have a customer come in and go, "You're ripping us off." I go, "What do you mean? I can get the same shoe at Big 5 for $19.99, and you're selling it for $99.99." I said, "No, you can't." "Yes, I can." I guess same in name only. Oh, yeah. So anyway, I went out and I bought Big 5 shoes, and then I cut them in half at $9.90, and they'd be totally different inside. It was a $9.99 knockoff, and I'm selling it for $99. So I took it to the DA's office. It was too hokey. It was like a science fair high school project. It was all these shoes cut off, and I took it to them, and I said, "They're ripping people off. New Balance is part of this. They're not getting them. New Balance is making them." And the DA took it and ran with it. And at that point, it was the highest penalty that the DA had collected. They collected $250,000 and they put out an ad about how they ripped everybody off. Bring the shoes in, you get full refund. It's only people. I got zero. I did get my reputation back, but normally you get a piece of the action, so to speak.
Yeah, now it's time. Yeah, that's Lance Armstrong whistleblower. I think they get a multiplier of all that. Yeah, that's too bad. That's too bad they didn't have that. Well, good for you, anyhow. Yeah.
Yeah, but it was like a science fair project in high school, junior high school, all handwritten stuff.
Yeah, you're making the DA's job easy. Yeah.
Yeah, I did definitely. So that was that. But yeah, I sold a lot of shoes. It was a small store, and it was packed with stuff, and a lot of it was getting old. And I'd sell 200, 300 pairs of track spikes in 3 weeks from track season. The entire county had come to me. And the first time the guy had come, I think it was the Brooks guy in spikes, and I ordered 100 pair. And he looks around going, 100 pair? Are you sure? I go, yeah. He goes, oh my gosh.
Nobody in your store. Yeah.
He says, wow, you can put it, first of all. But yeah, I sold out. It was a good business. It allowed me to retire. I sold it to Josh Spiker, who was California State Mile Champion here in Ventura years ago. He bought it. Then he sold it back to Michelle Martinez, who was the Ventura High School coach at the time. And she sold it back to Josh again. Now Josh has changed the name. It's no longer Inside Track. It's Mile 26. And he's doing really well. Nice. But I made good living off it. Sold it. Made some money there.
Yeah.
Running's been good to me.
Yeah. Wow. It's pretty cool. Do you keep all the memorabilia? Do you have a trophy room?
Yeah. My wife said, you ought to film it in this room here because you can show them she called them mausoleum, the running mausoleum. The answer to that is yes. Not only that, I have 400 T-shirts that I've saved over the years. I've got, going back to 1968, I think that's the oldest one, the Cal Berkeley NCAA Championships, 1968. And then a good 400 T-shirts. I've got every Beta Breakers T-shirt saved up since I stopped about 10 years ago, but about 30 straight years.
Wow. Do you do Runners Reunited?
No, I haven't, never gone. I keep thinking I should, and Scobie wants to go. Yeah, I'd like to do that sometime.
I talked to Ralph Cerna for such a long time, ended up with 4 episodes.
Wow.
He wanted to go through every race, and they were good stories and very good memories all the way through, all his teammates and all the trips and everything. Good memory, but his life as a shoe designer and all the crazy stuff he ended up doing there has really been fascinating. But yeah, I'm sure he would love to have you there too. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember Ralph was on the junior team in Wales when I got 7th in the seniors. He was in that junior team that went like 1 through 5 or something.
Yeah, they had 2 amazing years. Yeah, where they dominated. Yeah. Yeah. And then your other 2 races, what was different about them? 7th place is crazy.
Yeah. The first one was Morocco, and it was a bit sandy. I thought, I don't know, 2 places behind Shorter. And
yeah.
We did pretty well. I think we were second as a team. But then it was Dusseldorf. It was in Germany. But the whole team got constipated. We ate too much bread, I think. And the whole team went to the starting line constipated. Not maybe everybody, but I know I was. And I ran pretty bad. I got like 49th or something.
Yeah, not so bad, 49th in the world, but yeah. From your perspective, just one last thing is always interesting to me was across all these international trips, when did they figure out you needed acclimation time? I know like China, you had weeks there. You certainly acclimated to time there, but some of these trips where you would cross several time zones, were you given enough time to get on the ground and adjust, or how were they relaxed trips or?
No, they didn't give you a lot of time because they didn't want to pay for another room for all these guys. Like when I went to New Zealand for the New Zealand games, and I was in the 5,000, and we got stuck on the LA tarmac, and we were supposed to leave. They took us to the hotel for the night, so we had to get off the plane, go to the hotel. We were at the hotel for about an hour and a half, and they said, "Okay, now we're going." So we went back. By the time I got there, and I'd flown all that time, the race was that afternoon. It was one of only 2 races that I ever dropped out of non-injury. I just was like, I was last and getting laster. And I thought, I'm not going around this track another 8 times just to be last.
No, 8-hour time zone kind of sifted. I'll let you go. Thank you very much for all your time, Gary. It's great to get to know you a little bit, Gary. Thanks for all your time.
Thank you. It was fun.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed another episode. Do you have someone you'd like to hear interviewed on the podcast? You can leave a comment on the YouTube channel or on the website, running70s.com. That's running70s.com. Let me know what you think of the episodes and anyone, including yourself, you'd like to hear interviewed. I hope you enjoyed another episode of Running in the 70s. Voices, stories, and memories of athletes who were running in the 70s. Until next time, wherever you are, keep looking forward and don't forget to look back.